Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing a total teardown of what we think we know about how authoritarian regimes actually work. We're going to crack open the black box of dictatorial rule and look right past the headlines to see the cold, hard mechanics of absolute power. By pulling from decades of political science research, we're going to see exactly how autocrats seize control, how they keep it, and why they ultimately fall. So get ready, because the reality here is way more calculating and, honestly, way more fascinating than anything you see in the movies.
To kick things off, I want you to picture a dictator's downfall. What instantly comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's this very Hollywood myth, right? A massive, romanticized popular uprising, thousands of citizens storming the palace gates, demanding freedom. And look, it's a super inspiring image, and it definitely happens. But if we really want to understand a dictator's true vulnerabilities, we have to ask, is that crowd outside the gates actually their biggest threat?
Well, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer staggering contrast in the data. Look at this breakdown. A massive 68% of dictators are ousted by coups. That means they're taken out by regime insiders. Compare that to just 11% removed by popular uprisings. I mean, this data completely flips our standard assumptions upside down. A dictator's true enemy, the one literally most likely to end their rule, is almost always sitting right there in the palace with them.
We kind of hold on to this collective delusion of a righteous rebellion finally triumphing over the tyrant. But the reality? It's so much darker and incredibly paranoid. The overwhelming majority of these leaders don't lose power to the masses. They lose it to their own inner circle. We're talking their generals, their ministers, even their own bodyguards. Authoritarian politics essentially operates in this constant shadow of betrayal and violence, which honestly makes the palace a far more dangerous place than the public square.
And if you're sitting there wondering why we need to dig into this today, just consider this stark number. Roughly 40% of the world's nations are still ruled by dictatorships right now. This isn't just some ancient history lesson. Autocracy is a very real, dominant form of governance affecting millions upon millions of lives globally.
And the stakes here are incredibly lethal. Since the fall of the Berlin Wall, dictatorships have perpetrated nearly 85% of all government mass killings. On top of that, two-thirds of civil wars and ethnic conflicts since World War II have erupted in countries under authoritarian rule. So, getting a grip on the internal logic of these regimes, it's absolutely crucial for understanding global security and basic human rights.
This brings us to Section 1, the dictator's two dilemmas, the twin problems of rule. You see, every dictator, regardless of their ideology or where they are in the world, wakes up every single day facing two fundamental life-or-death problems. The first one is what political scientists call authoritarian control. Basically, this is the classic conflict between the tiny elite in power and the vast masses who are totally excluded from it. A dictator has to constantly manage the public to prevent those popular uprisings we talked about earlier. And they usually pull this off through a highly calculated mix of repression, using brute force, and co-optation, which is essentially buying loyalty through subsidies or special benefits.
But then we hit the second, far more fatal dilemma, which is authoritarian power sharing. Because, think about it, no dictator actually rules entirely alone. They have to rely on a ruling coalition of allies to enforce their will. So, what's the problem? Well, how do you keep your inner circle, your generals and your secret police, loyal, without giving them so much power that they suddenly realize they don't actually need you, and decide to just stage a coup?
Let's explore that in Section 2, how they seize power, the origins of autocracy. Okay, let's dive right into this, because to understand how a dictator handles these massive dilemmas, we really have to look at how they got the job in the first place. The way a dictatorship is born heavily dictates its rules, its level of paranoia, and its ultimate survival strategies. Generally speaking, dictatorships are initiated by one of three main groups. First, you have military officers, who usually seize power via a coup and bring this very hierarchical, arms-focused command structure. Second are political parties, who might authoritarianize a system after winning an election, bringing skills in bargaining and mobilizing voters. And third, you have ruling families or monarchies where power is dispersed among relatives. The pre-existing skills of whoever actually sees power fundamentally shape how decisions are made for years after the takeover. To put this into perspective, I absolutely love this historical warning from Machiavelli. He pointed out that relying on the military to secure your rule actually makes you their hostage. It perfectly encapsulates the extreme danger of military dictatorships. Think about it. If you pay the army to suppress the people, the army quickly realizes, wait, we hold the ultimate power here. They start demanding a seat at the table, a bigger cut of the profits, and suddenly the dictator is totally at the mercy of their own soldiers.
Which leads us to Section 3, Sticks and Carrots, solving the problem of control.
We actually saw this problem of control play out in real time with Bashar al-Assad during the Arab Spring in Syria. Anticipating protests, Assad initially offered carrots. He froze electricity prices, bumped up heating oil subsidies, and raised public salaries. But when the protests escalated anyway, he rapidly pivoted to sticks, imprisoning activists and firing live ammunition into crowds. Every dictator faces these kinds of strategic trade-offs. As you can see here, repression uses the military as an instrument, but that carries a massive risk of inviting an insider coup. Co-optation, on the flip side, often uses regime-sanctioned political parties. By offering career advancement only through party loyalty, it forces ambitious citizens to make sunk investments in the regime. They literally have to sink or swim with the dictator, which creates a way more stable base of support.
Now, let's look at Section 4, the threat from within, the problem of power sharing.
But let's pivot back to that most lethal threat for a second. If 68% of dictators fall to coups, how does a deeply paranoid politician constantly outmaneuver their own heavily armed allies? How do they survive this power-sharing problem? Surprisingly, the answer is often institutions. You might have wondered why dictatorships even bother having parliaments, ruling councils, or politburos. Well, it is definitely not because they harbor some secret democratic ideals. These formal institutions exist strictly to alleviate monitoring problems among the elite. They basically provide a secure room with clear rules where the dictator and their allies can share power, divide up the spoils, and communicate clearly to prevent any massive regime-destabilizing misunderstandings.
Over time, this whole elite dynamic evolves into what feels like a super high-stakes game of game theory. Usually we start with a contested autocracy, where the dictator is really just a first among equals, and allies use the constant threat of a coup to keep the leader's ambition in check. But if the dictator is cunning enough, they'll slowly purge those rivals one by one until they transition into an established autocrat. By this point, the dictator has completely monopolized power, eliminated the threats, and become practically invincible to their own inner circle. Just think of the transition from the early days of Stalin or Mao to their later unquestioned absolute rule. And to reach that level of invincible status, a dictator needs some highly specialized tools. Often, their very survival depends on creating entirely new internal security services. Sure, yes, they spy on the masses and intimidate external opponents, but honestly, just as importantly, these security forces are specifically designed to watch the regime's own ruling party and spy on its own military officers. It's literally an apparatus of paranoia, built from the ground up to ensure that absolutely no general or politician can organize a strike against the leader.
Finally, let's turn to Section 5, why this matters today, the consequences of collapse.
So, the crucial point is, what does all this actually mean for us, and for the world at large? We've kind of mapped out the internal wiring of an authoritarian regime, but we have to look at the real-world implications, especially when these regimes finally reach the end of the line. When a dictator successfully becomes an established, personalist autocrat, they systematically destroy absolutely anything that could challenge them. They eliminate capable rivals, they neuter the military, and they dismantle civil society. And this creates a deeply, deeply dangerous vacuum. When that dictator finally exits, whether they die or get ousted, there's virtually no human infrastructure left to maintain order. Successful democratization becomes extremely unlikely simply because the very institutions you'd need to build a stable government have been intentionally, systematically wiped out.
Which brings us to our final and admittedly somewhat unsettling thought. As we look at the black box of authoritarian rule from the outside, we really have to grapple with the heavy reality of foreign policy. If toppling a personalist dictator inevitably destroys the only remaining, albeit completely flawed, institutions holding a country together, is intervention the cure, or is it actually the disease? It's a highly complex, provocative question that really challenges our democratic ideals, and it's one I'm going to leave you to ponder as you continue to explore the intricate, incredibly dangerous world of authoritarian politics. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.